Hello, I'm Robert, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Elder Scrolls Online game. I'm joined today by my good friend Andy.
Hello.
See his character waving there on the screen. Andy's probably a bigger RPG player than me and probably knows a lot more about the Elder Scrolls, so he can hopefully fill in the gaps I don't know in this game. So this is the Elder Scrolls Online, which is the next Elder Scrolls game in the series. However, it doesn't follow on from Skyrim. It's set, is it roughly 1,000 years before?
Yeah, so it's 1,000 years before the 5 previous games, in a time where the Empire is fragmented into 3 factions, each of which is vying for the throne. So the Empire that you've seen from Arena through to Skyrim, that's what everybody's fighting for in this game, to take control of that.
That's great. So here we are. They can sort of do whatever they want with this game, I suppose. And it's quite clever, I suppose, really, because it's sort of set in the universe, but just enough outside the canon of the other games that it doesn't have to change anything that's already gone before it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes the same approach as Star Wars The Old Republic did in that sense, which is set 3,500 years before the film. So any changes that they want to make, they can just say, well, it changed back over the course of the centuries.
Exactly. It doesn't have to make any impacts on future games. Okay, so first off I want to talk a little bit about the game's graphics. So I've picked this location because I think it's kind of pretty and kind of reflects the whole game. You see a lot of different things here.
Although it has started raining just as we've got here, so...
Yeah, typically. Well, we are British, so I suppose playing in the rain sort of makes sense. You get a nice bit of lens flare off that building. I think the game's actually really good looking. It's definitely not as detailed as Skyrim, which I was playing the other day. Skyrim was kind of that sort of very photorealistic, almost graphics. Everything's really super high detail, and this isn't that. But especially out of the other online games I've played, this is definitely one of the most attractive. Yeah, looking at the general scenery, I think it's good look on the grass, and I think the character models are quite detailed.
I think the art style is really good, and there's a lot of variety in what you can see. I mean, there's definitely a different approach to all the buildings in each of the different races areas, so you get a lot of variety wherever you go. The only criticism I would draw is the draw distance, which I think is a bit short. Which, as you can see in front of you, that there's quite a lot of fog, even though we're not that far away from the other side of the river. You don't go those long distances that you'd see in Skyrim, where you could sort of see for across the entire map, and you could see mountains right from the other side, which I think is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's been limited to increase performance in the game. But obviously, a long draw distance in a game like this would slow down your frame rate. So perhaps for players with lower-end computers, that would be a problem. Then again, I guess they could have set it so you have a slider and you can alter it.
There is a slider in there, but even set to maximum, you're not seeing as much as I would hope. I mean, I wonder if it's just because, especially in the PvP side of it, when you've got a lot of players on screen at once, you'll get a lot of slowdown, so this does limit the number of things that are on the screen at any one time.
Yeah, so I guess they've done it just I would say, for performance reasons. Let's talk about the artwork in the game. I was instantly brought into the Elder Scrolls world the moment I started playing this game. In terms of the artwork, I think it looks and feels like an Elder Scrolls game. It has familiar architecture, familiar, even the flora and the fauna look Elder Scrolls like. And
I think it helped there the fact that we started in the Ebonheart Pact, because that means that we went back to Morrowind, which I think has the most distinctive artwork in any of the Elder Scrolls series.
Yeah,
I mean, Morrowind's well known for being very weird looking, with giant mushrooms and weird looking animals roaming all over the place.
Okay, so one of the things I actually love about this game is the level of customization. You really can choose a unique character and develop your character in a way that is completely different, I think, to anyone else's. I doubt there's any 2 characters in this game that are completely the same. Obviously, customization starts the moment you start the game, when the first thing you have to do is select the alliance side you want to fight for.
So there are 3 alliances in the game. There's the Ebonheart Pact, which consists of the Dark Elves, also known as the Dunmer, the Nords and the Argonians. There's the Daggerfall Covenant, which is the Orcs, the Redguards and the Bretons. And there's the Old Mary Dominion, which are the Khajiit, High Elf and Bosmer. Now there's also the Imperials, but you can only join them if you ordered the Imperial Pack, which is the special collector's edition. If you pre-ordered the game, you can join any race into any faction. If you've bought the game after it was released, then you can only play a race in the faction that it's supposed to.
So that's good to know. So you're more limited, really, if you're joining the game sort of from now onwards than
yes,
that were here from the start.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's released as a DLC at some point, but it's not there yet.
Fair enough. So that's the first thing you get to select, and then of course you get to customise your character themselves. Right down to it. There's lots of different sliders you can select. You know, for height, how fat you are, your sex, obviously. You obviously picked your race as well, based on the faction you've chosen to join. And then that's quite good. It's quite detailed. I thought some of the sliders, actually, when you move them, didn't seem to make much difference to the way the character looked. I couldn't notice many changes.
Yeah, for me, I think the main differences were on things like the hairstyles and hair colour and things like that stand out much more. I'd say there was a lot of variety in there. I certainly haven't seen any other characters that look just like mine, so yeah, there's definite scope to be an individual.
And I think it's probably got a lot more customisation than a lot of other online games. I don't remember Lord of the Rings Online having as much customisation in the character as this.
No, there's only about half a dozen faces you could choose from for a start.
So it's definitely detailed and expansive. There's a lot you can choose from. So that's your character created, and obviously once you're in game, you stay looking how you look, apart from your clothing, which changes based on the 3 armour types you can select.
Yeah, I mean, you'll also want to choose your character class, which there's 4 of in game, though they're only really a starting point. You can develop your character at any direction you like from after that. So really, you can build whatever kind of character you want, and you can mix and match. You can have a sorcerer in heavy armor if you want, if that's what interests you. So there's a lot of flexibility that really gets you design what you want to design.
That's one thing I definitely like about the game. It's not so much you're not forced to play a specific class like you are in a lot of other RPGs. You can mix and match to be the best of whatever it is you want to do in game.
And it means you can choose a different role in combat as well. I mean, you can play as a sorcerer, but traditionally sorcerers would hang back in combat in most games. But in this, if you want to be a frontline sorcerer, you can be. You just have to pick your skills accordingly.
So that's that. And then on to levelling up. So, like any other RPG, you gain experience points by completing quests, killing creatures, that sort of thing. And every so often you advance in level. When you do so, you get to choose 1 attribute point to fit into 3 different slots. You've got Magicka, which is your magic abilities, your health bar, which is obviously your health, and your stamina bar, which is your stamina, which is used for things like running, as well as your melee weapons combat. All fairly simple. Obviously, Magicka you use when you're casting spells, and your health is, well, your health.
Yeah, and obviously also when you level up you get a skill point, which you can put into one of the many skill trees in the game. You also get skill points from sky shards and from completing certain quests. The main quest for a start, every quest you get gives you a skill point. Yeah. And there's a few others in there as well. So
we should tell everyone what sky shards are, I suppose. A sky shard is a crystal, I suppose, yeah. And they're scattered randomly across the entire game.
There's about 16 in every of the areas, so there's plenty to find. They're all hidden in nooks and crannies. Yeah. A lot are hidden in dungeons. Others are just out, wherever you might find them as you wander around.
Yeah, just randomly in places. And once you've collected 3 sky shards, you get 1 skill point to spend. So for every 3 sky shards, you get a skill point. Which is quite cool. Quite a neat way of advancing your skills outside of just leveling up.
It really is an encouragement to explore the game more than anything, and not just focus on the combat. It really lets you explore the world that you're living in.
Exactly, so it's a good thing. As Andy's touched on, you also get skill points for completing the main quest storylines. And then, as I said, you also get skill points for leveling up. And there are so many things you can spend skill points in, it is untrue. I've got the list up on the screen here, you can see. So we've got class skill points, weapon skill points, armor skill points, world skill points, guild skill points, the Alliance War skill points, which is the player versus player system in the game, racial skill points, and crafting skill points. And then each of those settings is again broken down into subsettings. So for class, you've got your dark magic, your Daedric summoning, or your storm calling.
Well, that's of course only for your class. Every other class has got three unique lines. So there's 12 class skill lines in all.
So that's those. You've also got skill lines for every sort of weapon in game. So you've got your two-handed weapons, your one-handed weapons and shields, your dual-wielding weapons, your bows, and then the two types of magic staff for the available in the game. And each of those again has its own set of abilities. Similarly with armour, you've got the 3 armour types you can put skill points into. So that's light armour, medium armour, and heavy armour.
And each of those is structured around one of the attributes that you looked at earlier. So the light armor is structured around magic, medium around stamina, and heavy around health.
Then we've got world, which is just soul magic. There's only
which is part of the main quest. You level up in that for completing the main quest.
We've then got your skill points for the guild that you're part of.
There will be more of those coming in the future. They've already announced they're going to do the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, who are the assassins. They'll be coming at some point in the next few months. I don't know exactly when yet.
It should be good guilds to play. Always a lot of fun in the other games. But to start with, you've got the Fighters Guild, the Mages Guild, and the Undaunted.
Yeah, the Undaunted's a new one for this game. They're based around group dungeons, so they're designed for you to team up with your friends and go through a dungeon together.
Exactly. So then you've got skill points in the Alliance War, which have split into Assault and Support. Racial skill points. So again, skill points based around what race you've chosen to play as. So these are my Dark Elf skills here. And then you've also got skill points in crafting, which I haven't touched. There's 2 types of skill points in the game. You've got passive abilities and active abilities. I'll pull up one of my like dark magic, for example. So active abilities are spells that you physically activate and cast in game. So for example, I've got like my feature that fights for me that I can cast, or a lightning spell. And these are spells that I activate when I'm attacking an enemy. And then you've also got passive abilities, which are always active, and they just make your character better in whatever way you want to use. So like, for example, here I've got the passive ability of blood magic.
Yeah, some of those are dependent on you need certain active skills slotted in your skill bar in order for the passives to have an impact.
Yeah.
For example, they might only increase the damage done with a specific set of active skills. So you still have to pay attention to what you've got slotted with the passives. But as a rule, the passives will increase, everything that you do.
Yeah. And then you've also got ultimate abilities in some class sections, which, as it sounds, is an uber ability. And these are bound to a separate key.
Yeah, so you gain the ultimate points by killing and just inflicting damage during combat, and then every so often you can release one of these skills. The idea is you're not using it constantly, but you can use it every minute or two when you need to.
I found it very useful when I'm stuck in a tight corner in a fight that I would be unlikely to win otherwise. Being able to activate the ultimate ability usually gets me through the win there. The last thing to talk about with the skill points is that certain skills can eventually be upgraded.
Yeah, so any of your active abilities can be what they call morphed, which basically means you've got 2 specializations for each of them, and each specialization will you still keep the base statistics that each active skill did, but then you're going to have 2 options on what you want to upgrade. So for example, a skill might let you upgrade to doing more damage, or it might do you a small amount of healing every time you attack.
Yeah, a good example, I've just pulled up my Fighters Guild skill line, and my active ability for a crossbow that I can use as a weapon. The original first use of this item before I managed to morph it just gave me shots against 1 target. When I morphed it recently, now when I fire it, it will hit 2 targets at once. So that's the upgrade. It's gone from hitting 1 target to 2, which makes it a much more useful weapon. And that's really all there is to the skill lines and to character customization. As you can see, you really can put points into lots of different things to create a character that is specific to you, unique to you, and more importantly, does what you need it to do in game. You know, it fights the way you want to fight. Okay, next up is crafting. I don't know much about crafting. I'll be honest, it's not one of the areas in this game I've touched upon. So I'm going to hand it over to Andy to talk about it.
Okay, so there's 6 different crafting skill lines, as you've just seen. Alchemy, blacksmithing, clothing, enchanting, provisioning and woodworking. I'm only looking at 3 of those. Clothing for my medium armour, which if I wanted I could also use to make light armour. Blacksmithing for my weapons, which you can also use to make heavy armour. And enchanting, which I'm using to add magical effects to the items that I'm crafting. If you want to, you can look at all 6 of them. You're going to run into 2 problems there. Firstly, you're going to split your skill points over 6 rather than a smaller number. And the other thing is you'll probably run out of inventory space. But if you want to, the game does let you focus on as many or as few as you like. You can craft a lot of different items. Certainly on the armour side, there's a lot of variety. You'll find there's different crafting materials which will depend on what level you're crafting the items for. There's a different style for each of the 10 races in the game, and there's a few additional ones as well, like Daedric and Ancient Elf, that aren't tied specifically to a race. So you'll find there's a lot of armour variety just in the appearance, even ignoring any statistical changes that you might see. You can also add in traits to them, which you have to research, which means you can add on, for example, stamina boosts or armour boosts. But in order to add those on, you have to find a specific one in the game and deconstruct it by researching it, which takes a certain amount of time, which will increase for each item that you do. I'll be honest, the enchanting I'm a bit disappointed with, mostly because you need 3 specific of these runes that you find throughout the world, and it doesn't seem like they've weighted them to occur roughly the same amount of time. So I've got dozens of 2 different types, but I can't use them because I don't have any of the 3rd type. So I do think it needs a bit of a rejig before you can really use it to the extent you want it to. I've kept my blacksmithing and my clothing roughly at the same level as my character level, but the enchanting I'm about 10-15 levels behind, so I'm going to have to catch that up at some point.
Okay, so next up is weapon types. There's lots of different weapons in the game, and as we've touched upon, you can use them in different ways as well. So you've got things like your bows and your single-handed weapons, so sort of big, great swords. I'm using dual-wield weapons at the moment, so I've got a mace and an axe, and you can equip those to both hands as well, which is quite handy.
The dual wield, there's a couple of different weapon types. Obviously, you can also use this when you're using single weapon and a shield. You've got axes, maces, swords, and each of them's got a slightly different bonus. For example, axes do bleed, and which does damage over time, and swords I think move a bit faster.
So you can customise it to your playstyle. And then also, if you're playing as a wizard or mage, you've got destruction staffs, which obviously deal damage, and a healing staff as well, which you can use to heal. So there's lots of different variations. It's worth also pointing out that, is it level 10? I can't remember. At a certain level, you get
15. It is
15. At level 15, you get access to a second weapon slot. So you can actually have 2 complete different sets of weapons and different skills active. So you can have one that's perhaps better for certain combat situations, and then one for other combat situations, and you can switch between them at will to best suit your needs, which is quite good.
Yeah, or you can actually have both skill points having the same type of weapon in there, so you can have both of your lines having dual weapons. Yeah. Though obviously they'd have to be different weapons, but it would mean you could have 2 different sets of skills activated if you wanted. Yeah,
so that's handy. I'll touch upon viewpoint as it sort of relates to combat the most, I think. The Elder Scrolls games, I think, are famous for being RPGs that let you play in first-person view. I mean, most RPGs up until this point were sort of either third-person looking over the shoulder or top-down view from really old RPGs.
Yeah, the old isometric view that you've seen in things like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's quite cool. I really like the first person view. I sort of come from mostly playing first person shooters. Played far more of those than I have role playing games in my life. so I'm kind of used to first-person view and first-person combat. But if you're new to it, I think you might find it a little odd, particularly if you've only ever played RPG games where it's sort of turn-based. The combat in Elder Scrolls Online isn't turn-based.
No, it feels like you're playing a first-person shooter with just in a fantasy setting.
So, for example, we come upon this enemy here.
It's not an enemy.
It's not an enemy. That's another player. Oh, it looks like an enemy. If we come upon an enemy, like this guy here, obviously if this was, say, Lord of the Rings Online, you'd be pressing your number keys or your skill bar at the bottom of your mouse to activate your attacks, and the game would then automatically issue that attack on the player. However, and this is where it differs and is more like a first-person shooter with Elder Scrolls, I run up to the player and I put my left and right mouse button to attack the player. Left mouse button does my attack with the weapon, and if I press my right mouse button by default, it does a blocking move to block attacks. Then to activate our skills and our sort of magic attacks, you still press the number key corresponding to that attack. So that enemy player in front of me, I want to shoot him with my crossbow. I'll press it quickly and I'll come to my crossbow to shoot him. Or 4 there and I do my lightning attack. And that is kind of similar to the turn-based system, except that it happens instantaneously.
Yeah, to me it feels much more immersive this way because just from the perspective, I think more than anything, it does actually feel like it's more like the way the first-person shooter draws you into the game, rather than most RPGs. It tends to almost be more strategic.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. This feels a far more fluid combat as well. I think it's more, like you say, it draws you in. It's more sort of, what's the word? It's what I'm used to, firstly, having played first-person shooters. It is much more immersive. But again, I say if you're used to the more sort of traditional methods for role-playing games, then it perhaps will take a little bit of time to get used to.
Obviously, you can switch to the third-person view at any point just by pressing V.
True.
And if you'd rather attack from that, it's the same controls and combat style as if you're in the first-person view. But if you prefer to see your own character, you can do.
Yeah, so you can fight in third person, but you won't ever get that turn-based fighting in this game. So if you're used to that from, say, Lord of the Rings Online or other role-playing games, it might be a bit odd when you switch to this game. But I'd say persevere with it. I think it is better overall.
The other advantage they got is because you've got a relatively small skill bar. You've obviously got 5 skills plus your ultimate, doubled up obviously if you've got to level 15 and you've got a second bar. You end up having a very small number of skills you can use at any one time. But given the number of skills in the skill line, you can chop and change that as much as you like as you find different weapons, or just because you want to try out different things. There's a lot of variety you can use in your combat. I find in a lot of MMOs you tend to end up with a set rota almost. That you've got to use certain skills in a certain order.
Yeah,
that doesn't occur in this purely because there's not enough of them at any one point to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, very true. I mean, it's certainly in Lord of the Rings Online when I was playing that, I had about 4 or 5 different skills that I used in a set order every attack because that's what I knew would defeat an enemy.
Yeah, and you might have a few special ones depending on if your health's getting low or if it's a boss or an area of attack skill. But for the most part, there's certainly a normal rota that you'd follow. Well, you wouldn't have that in this necessarily.
No. I wanted to talk about quickly looting. So I've killed this enemy player, see in front of me, and you can see it's one I've killed because it's got a little yellow outline around him. If I don't get a touch on an enemy player, I can't loot their body. However, you only do need to get 1 hit on another enemy target, even if they're being attacked by someone else, and you'll still get credit for damaging that player and therefore be able to loot the body once it's dead. Press E by default, and you can pick up whatever that character was carrying. In this case, it's just 1 gold, but you will find weapons and armour and other items occasionally. And also, and I suppose related to all Elder Scrolls games, is you can search most other items. So empty crates and barrels here, you can also search and find items that you may want and find useful.
Yeah, it's not quite as much as you'd find in other Elder Scrolls games, but it is comparable. A few people have criticised because you can't, say, knock over an entire table's worth of food and things like that. It doesn't quite have the interactivity that you might expect if you've moved straight over from Skyrim. but it's certainly a step up, I'd say, from most other online games.
Yeah, I don't think most online games let you sort of take any items at all from objects that are lying around you.
Unless there's something very specific, you know, either they're a quest item or they're a specific potion or something that you can use.
So that's definitely another plus point, and definitely another thing that sort of distinguishes the Elder Scrolls games away from other games and other MMOs. Okay, so the quests in game. Firstly, the style of quest. I think the quests are very sort of in canon for the rest of the games. They feel like Elder Scrolls quests. They have that sort of quirky nature to them and variation that I've come to expect from Elder Scrolls game quests.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of side quests that remind me of previous games. It's the usual kind of stuff that you'd expect in an RPG. You know, can you go here and help me find my rats, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But as always, they've got a nice Elder Scrolls twist on them. Usually, they often feel a bit weird and strange. Not normally what you'd expect from an RPG.
I've been really pleased as well that so far in my playtime, I haven't come across any quests that are, even if they are really, haven't felt like go here and kill 20,000 creatures, come back and complete quest. You know, every RPG online ones anyway that I've played have had one of those quests in. I remember loads of Lord of the Rings. It was just go here, kill these, come back again. And Elder Scrolls Online doesn't seem to do that sort of quest, or when it does, it cleverly hides it with good storyline and good dialogue, so you don't really feel like you're doing one of those quests. Because I don't know about everyone else, but I find them really tedious.
I think it helps that they made the same decision they made for Star Wars: The Old Republic, where every quest giver is fully voiced, so you always feel like there's a bit of a story for it.
Yeah, I really like that.
And most of the vocal actors are pretty good. There's a few ones that I think they could probably have improved on, but for the most part, they're pretty good, and they make you interested in the area.
Yeah, I should just since I happen to have found one, point out for people that are watching that glowing thing there with the light shooting in the sky, that is a sky shard, so I can go and correct that. I'll bring back my voice. That was a handy find. So if I collect one more sky shard, I'll have a skill point to spend, which is handy. So back to quests. Yeah, I really like the voice acting. Again, something that not really many other RPGs do. And obviously we should mention the famous actors and actresses that have lent their voices to this game.
Yeah, there's a very good cast. Bill Nighy, Kate Beckinsale. You know, the kind of actors that you'd normally expect from an Elder Scrolls game. Obviously, in previous games, you've seen Sean Bean, Patrick Stewart, people like that. So, as always, they've gone for big name actors that they think can add a sense of gravitas to the game.
And it's quite. I'm glad they've kept up that sort of tradition. I suppose that's one of the things you expect from an Elder Scrolls game, is to find some famous voices in it somewhere. Right, so the quests. There are lots of different quest types in this game. From people you can get quests from, I should say. So you've got, first of all, obviously there's the main storyline.
Yeah, which is to do with you having your soul taken from you by Molag Bal, the Prince of Lies, which he took from you before you escaped from his realm of Cold Harbour. And that storyline is about reuniting 5 companions and trying to defeat Molag Bal once and for all.
Yeah. So there's that. And I'm quite glad that the main quest there, it doesn't pop up too often. It sort of appears every few levels.
It's about every 5 levels for the most part, I think.
Yeah, and you just go and do it as and when you need to. In addition to that, every sort of main area that you're in seems to have its own sort of mini main storyline, as it were.
Yeah, that sort of takes you on a route throughout the entire area from one end to the other, obviously leveling you up as you go.
Yeah, I guess it's the primary aim of those quests actually, is to make sure you sort of see the whole.
But even so, there's plenty of places that if you just follow the line that quest takes you, you'll miss out on probably half the area. You do have to go explore for yourself and find lots of other nooks and crannies that you wouldn't have found otherwise. But it gives you a good idea of what order you should do them in, because obviously not every area is of the same quest level.
Yeah. So there's those. Then there's obviously the standard sub-quests, your side missions. There's lots of those scattered about the maps, and they're usually a bit more light-hearted and they're quite good fun to do. And then, last but not least, are your guild quests. And when you join a guild, obviously they give you quests, and you've got all those to complete as well.
Yeah, so the Fighters and Mages guilds have each got their own storyline. The Fighters Guild are helping the fight against Molag Bal, and the Mages Guild are dealing with the Mad God Sheogorath, who you might remember if you played the Oblivion expansion, the Shivering Isles. Now, they level up slightly differently. Rather than giving you quests every so often, the Mages Guild, for example, you have to collect lore books that you find throughout the game, and that levels you up on the skill line in the Mages Guild. And once you get to a certain level, you unlock the next quest. With the Fighters Guild, it's all about killing the undead and the Daedra. And again, once you level up your skill line, then you'll activate the next quest. To be honest, on the Fighters Guild, I didn't struggle at all to get the requisite number of kills. And usually by the time I completed one Fighters Guild quest, I'd already unlocked the next. I just needed to get to the area where it was and level up, because it was usually about 4 or 5 levels above me. But the Mages Guild, I found I did actually have to go out and search for lore books, because I was normally, just in my normal searching, didn't find quite enough that I needed.
So I really like that there's all these different types of quests. I think it means that if you get stuck on any particular quest, there's something else, always going to be something else you can go and do in game. You're never not going to be able to have some sort of quest that you can complete, which is nice. And that's really all there is to the quests. Obviously, hopefully in future expansions of the game more will be added. We know obviously that there's going to be more guilds added at some point, and they'll have their own quest lines.
And we know they're going to add more areas to the game as well. If you compare a map of Tamriel to the areas that are just present in the game at the moment, you can see that they've left large portions of it, which presumably are there for any future expansions.
So there should be plenty of content to keep players subscribing for many years to come, all being well. So this is the player versus player arena,
which it takes up the whole of Cyrodiil, which is the area that you were in during Oblivion. So the 3 factions we mentioned earlier are vying for control of the Imperial throne, which is the Imperial city at the centre of the territory.
Yeah. To access, it's called the Alliance War. The PvP in Elder Scrolls Online is called the Alliance War. To access it, you go to your main tab of items, or press L by default to go straight to it, and you select the server you're on. Basically, you've got your campaigns, and it shows the packs on the first page, and the scores that each one's got, and your bonuses, and who's currently Emperor. You've got a leaderboard of players, so you can see who's the best, and then you've got your actual servers which you join. You select one home server, which is the main one that you play on, but you can choose to guest on any other server. So if your server's locked out because it's got too high a player count, you can play somewhere else for the lower population. So
or if your friends play on a different server.
Yeah, exactly. If your friends play a different server, so you can always play somewhere though, which is quite a nice little touch. I'll be honest, the PvP in this game is my least favourite part of the game. I think it's the least well done. When you the first time you ever play PvP in this game, you go through a little tutorial which teaches you about things such as the siege weapons you can use in game. I found this tutorial very clunky, and actually I got confused and quite frustrated at several points because they didn't really explain that well what I had to do. Hopefully at some point they'll come back and rewrite the tutorials and make it a little bit easier to understand.
So this is one of the forts that you can see spread over all the map. So the Alliance War is really about capturing these forts. The end of the real end game is to capture the 6 that surround the Imperial city. And once you do that, then whoever is top of the particular faction's leaderboard is declared Emperor.
Yeah. So it is a defend or attack PvP. So you obviously have to defend your own bases whilst attacking the enemies.
When you're attacking, you have to use siege weapons to break down the doors, and I can create one here for us, just so you can see what it is. If I just drop one on the ground here. So you can see I've got a ballista here, which you can use to break down doors or walls. And there's 3 different types of siege weapon depending on exactly what kind of thing you want to target. And it's quite a simple interface, and I can just shoot wherever I need to go. And then once I'm done, I can just pack it up once it's finished reloading.
The siege weapon is a nice touch. It's a nice heavy weapon. I suppose it's akin to if you were playing something like PlanetSide 2, it would be akin to having a tank or an aircraft. It's a heavy artillery in the game. The combat itself is exactly the same to the combat you find in the main game, in the player versus environment. So it's exactly the same controls and exactly the same combat. I find the combat so far quite frantic. You really have to find a large group of players to fight with, and you die stupidly easily in this game.
And you can see a group there in front of us fighting, so hopefully you'll get an idea of what's up.
Yeah, you watch them get killed.
I tend to find that because everyone is in a large group, it tends to make you more likely to survive if you hang back. This in turn means that it's usually slightly more productive to use range weapons in PvP, which is something I think they will need to rebalance, because melee players probably get killed before they can even close to swinging range.
I've tried to close the distance to fight with my weapons hand to hand, and I just get killed almost instantly. Admittedly, when I try to hang back and use some of my ranged spells, I also die pretty fast, so maybe I'm just rubbish. Might well be the case. When you die, you get to respawn back at one of your own bases. So you do spend quite a lot of time running back into the fight, especially if you're attacking another base. You will spend time running back to that fight, which I quite like actually. It spreads the fight out a bit.
Yeah, obviously that will be made a bit quicker if you can afford a horse, but these tend to be quite expensive. I wasn't able to afford mine until I got to about level 25. And that was by saving pretty much every penny I earned, apart from repairing any damaged armour. So it's not something that you can just pick up at level 1, unless you've got the Imperial Collector's Edition, which gives you a very cheap horse right from the start.
And I'm dead. See, I didn't even see that player come. I'm rubbish with PvP in this game.
Well, to be fair, it is a what they call veteran level 10, which is effectively a level 60 player that just killed you there. Yeah. So that's a maximum level player who's presumably got a very good idea of what skills they need to use.
That's the thing. I do think the PvP is something you probably should ignore until you're quite a high level player yourself in the game. Just because you don't have as many skills or perhaps the best skills yet, I do think that definitely puts you at a disadvantage.
Yeah, you can enter at any level from 10 onwards, but as Rob says, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it until you get to a higher level.
So that's probably all there is to talk about PvP, really. I don't know what they're going to add to it later on in the game. I'm sure it will be expanded.
I think it'll definitely be a focus. Although this is a new studio that's made Elder Scrolls Online, a lot of the people working on it worked on the MMO Dark Age of Camelot, which came out about 10 years ago. That was very much a PvP-focused game, so I would expect them to want to keep doing that because that's what they know and that's what they're good at.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the cost of the game. It's not free to play. Get that out of the way first of all. Now on the UK Amazon website at the moment, they're listing the price to buy the box of the game at £29.99. That's British pounds sterling. You do get a month's free play with that price as well, so you don't instantly have to start paying a subscription. They're also listing the game price for the Sony PlayStation and the Xbox. It's not released for those two consoles yet, but you can pre-order, and they're listing the price at the moment as £47.86, although that might change when the game's actually released. And then, obviously after your first month, you need to subscribe to the game, and there's 3 subscription options. You can play the game for 30 days, 90 days, or 180 days. And the prices are as follows. For 30-day subscription, UK is £8.99, or $14.99 US dollars, or $12.99 euros. The 90-day subscription is £23.97 or 41.97 US dollars, or 35.97 euros. And then the 180-day subscription is 41.94 UK pounds. US dollars, it's 77.94, or it's 65.94 euros. I actually think the subscription costs are pretty reasonable for this game. I particularly think the 90-day or 3-month subscription offers the best value for money versus time, because £23.97 for 3 months. I mean, you buy a new game, it probably costs more than that to start with, and if you buy a game a month, say, well, you spend far more than £23.97, £24. You spend far more. So it's very reasonable value, and I think also 3 months is long enough to keep playing the game, but short enough that if you do get bored, you're not wasting a lot of money.
Yeah, that's always the danger with subscription games, is it makes you feel like you can't play anything else, because if you do, you're wasting money. So there's always a fine line to work on when it comes to the subscription costs.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big supporter of free-to-play games for a long time. I think I like free-to-play because I can play the game, I can buy items as and when I want, and when I've got the money and when I want something, but I don't feel tied to the game. If I stop playing and I go play something else, I've not got money wasting away with a subscription time accounting now. That said, I've been really happy with the subscription costs for the Elder Scrolls Online, and I'd be happy to keep paying at those prices. I don't think they're too expensive, and I think the time scales work. So it just depends.
I think a lot of it will come down to what new content they release. In order to justify the subscription cost, they're going to have to carry on releasing new content. They've already announced the first couple of things they're going to be doing, but it'll depend on how quickly they can get those released.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the long-term test of the game, really, and how it works as subscription is how often they can create content for it. One thing I will say, though, is that I think the quality of the game and my experience of dealing with their customer support thus far, and just the media output they've created, I think is all very high quality. I feel that this is a high quality product that's been created here and is actually worth paying for.
Yeah, I've encountered a few bugs along the way, mostly quests that I wasn't able to complete, but nothing that's ever stopped me from progressing. I was able to move on to another quest because there were so many, and usually they've been rectified by the time there's a maintenance update.
Also, really like with this game, the maintenance cycles they try to do early in the morning as well. So unless it's like the proper emergency maintenance that has to happen, you'll find the maintenance is done actually about 6 in the morning here in the UK. And I think it's the same in America. They do it early in the American morning as well, which is good because it impacts the least number of players. I've played several online games where they like to do maintenance in the middle of the afternoon, just when everyone's coming back from work or school, and at that point, that's when most people are wanting to play. So to do maintenance then seems a bit stupid to me, but there you go. At least Elder Scrolls Online have got it right and do it early in the morning. So to summarise, I'm overall pleased with the game. It has a few negatives. Like I say, I'm not really a fan of the PvP, but other than that, I'm happy. I think it looks and feels like an Elder Scrolls game, plays like an Elder Scrolls game, and really that's the best thing about it. The quests are good fun, and it looks great. Anything you want to add, Andy?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. I mean, there's a lot to explore here. We've been playing for about a month now, and neither of us has finished the Ebon Hat Plucked area, and obviously then we've still got 2 more whole areas to cover, so there's a lot of content there, certainly a lot to explore. It's definitely, I'm really glad I spent the money on it.
Yeah, it's well worth the money.
It's not quite as good as graphically as Skyrim, but I don't think that matters. I think it's worth it for the variety of the environments you see.
Yeah, I agree. I think the positives of this game far outweigh any negatives that it may have, and I hope that it has a long and successful future. And that's really all there is to say. We're going to give the game a score. We've both sort of agreed a similar sort of score. So we're giving this game 8 out of 10.
Yes.
And that's all there is from me today. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this review useful. Please feel free to comment, like and dislike this video. I like criticism, and if you really like it, I like that as well. It's always nice to be helpful. So from me, thanks for watching,
Yeah, thank you.